Good morning, guys. Trying to see why my camera is not turning on. Good morning, guys. Good evening to our amazing partner, wherever you guys are. Today we're going to speak about University of West England. We have Sophie from University of West England that's going to talk about the university. Thank you so much, Sophie, for being with us today. Appreciate the time. And then we do have Angie, my colleague, that she will take the Q&A at the end. Few reminder, like always, the first 45 minutes or so of this presentation gonna go toward of the presentation. Sit back, relax, because we are going to send you the recorded version of this presentation, so you can just like write down your question, use the question box to write any question you may have from Sophie about University of West England. Angie will oh my God, now the word doesn't come out of my mouth, right? Angie will ask the questions a day. You know, sometimes that happen, right? One word get stuck in your
all the time.
So she will take care of the questions at the end of the presentation for us, and then I will come back. And so pretty much I will leave the rest of the floor for you guys and get it started. Once again, Sophie, thank you so much for being here with us and taking time on walking us through the University of West England. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Meti. Okay, well, thank you. It's fantastic to be here. I feel really lucky to be joining ApplyBoard and be able to speak to you all about UWE today. And I know that there's been a few of these, so I hope that I'm giving you some new information, some information that's interesting about the university, some information which is going to wow you and make you think, yep, that's the university I want to send my students to. So really, I'm here today to give you an overview of the university, to kind of give you what I think is special about the university. I've worked for UWE now for almost 10 years. So I was regional manager for South Asia, I was regional manager for North America, and now my role is head of international office. So you know, I've got quite a lot of experience of working with the university and living in Bristol. So hopefully I can impart some of that information for you today and really give you a taste and a flavour of what the university is about. So let's begin. Before we start, I don't want to make this too much around coronavirus, because I know at a time like this where we're all on lockdown or maybe beginning to come out of lockdown, we're working from home, and that our students and our applicants have got a lot of questions, and that there's a lot of hard decisions to make, that it would be remiss of me to not mention it, but that actually we know increasingly that applicants and students aren't just wanting to be bombarded about this, but I do think it's important to touch upon what UWE is doing about this. So UWE moved, as with most UK universities, moved to online teaching for our current students back in March, so just before the lockdown was announced. At present, we still have over 800 students who have actually remained on our campus throughout, who are getting a lot of support from the university to ensure that they can continue with their studies. But a large number of them have gone back to their own countries as well. We're very lucky at the university that we're able to support very closely the NHS. We've actually had one of the Nightingale hospitals open on our campus, separated from our main campus, but the university isn't just doing a lot academically to support the virus, but we actually have opened up that hospital on our campus. We've done a number of things as well for our applicants. So something that I think a lot of you may be interested in is that we do actually have our own online English placement test, which is free to our applicants. So we know that IELTS centres have closed, that a lot of students are concerned about that. So we do have our own test, which will be offered to all of our offer holders. We're really trying to be flexible around transcripts as well. So we know that, again, with closures of schools, cancellations of exams, a lot of students, and therefore yourselves, are very worried about kind of what's going on with that. So you know, we're really trying hard at the university to make sure that as much as possible we haven't had any detrimental impact on students coming to the university. One of the big things at the moment, and unfortunately I can't make an announcement today, although I do think it will be later this week, is what the start of term will look like. So what I can tell you is that it will be face-to-face. We're not looking at online teaching, and I think for master's students in particular that's quite important. We will possibly look at lectures being online because of social distancing, but what I do want to make clear is that we will have an intake this autumn, and that it will be at the university itself, but obviously there is a lot going on behind the scenes to make sure that's as safe and secure for students as possible. We're also looking at scholarships for our applicants, so I can actually announce today that any student who pays their deposit by the end of July, that we will give them a £300 scholarship on top of what other scholarship they get for their NHS surcharge. So you may be aware that students coming to the UK have to pay £300 for their NHS surcharge, and UWE, because we want to commit to the safety of our applicants, will pay that for any students who pay their deposit before the 31st of July. And then we have also moved as well to online pre-sessional English. So for any applicants who need that additional support, they are able to look at that as well. So that's just a little bit of an overview of what the university has done in response to the coronavirus so far. And if we go on to the next slide. And I know that a lot of you here will be complete experts in the UK. So I only want to touch on this quickly because I think it is important. I know a lot of you will work with multi-destinations. A lot of you may have worked for the UK for many years. A lot of you may be newer to the UK. And I think it is always good to remind ourselves, not just why UWE, but why the UK. So we've got here the quality. So what we know is that 4 out of the top 9 global universities are located in the UK. So not only do we have that quality, but we have that international reputation. And actually, the University of Oxford, founded in 1167, was the first UK English-speaking university in the world. So we have quality, but we also have that huge kind of reputational, historical, educational hub, which is the UK. And what I often find when I speak to my applicants, and I'm sure you're the same, is it's not just about that academic piece of paper, that yes, of course, that's important. A university degree can get them so far, but actually it's what they learn whilst they're studying overseas for themselves that's important. So that international perspective that they will get from choosing to study in the UK versus back home in India or the US or Vietnam or China or wherever it is that they're located, this will really give them that value added. And what the UK is also very strong with is what we call the real experiences with salaries. So placement years, opportunities for students to do a paid placement is something that is integrated into many, many UK degrees. And then kind of looking further on some of the other things that make it, and I'm sure that many of you will be aware that most recently the government have announced that they are reintroducing the post-study work visa. So this is something that we previously had in the UK. It was removed back in 2012 and was a big barrier to, I know, a lot of the agents that we work with, to a lot of universities. And the UK has managed to continue to receive a lot of international students because of all these great things that we're talking about today. But we do know that the post-study work visa will be a huge draw to a lot of international applicants. We know that the government are still proposing to go ahead with that. So from the information we know so far, that students who are joining this year will be the ones that will be eligible for this. So students graduating from 2021 will be the first cohort of students who will be eligible to apply for the post-study work visa. This will be a 2-year visa that they will apply to separately to their degree, that they can then use to be able to gather work experience, stay in the UK, work, get that global exposure, which they can then take with them onto their next place of work. Now, I know often that the UK is seen as an expensive destination, and I'm not here to tell you that it's not. The reality of overseas education for most students is that it is not a low-cost option. However, there is often an incorrect kind of feeling that the UK is one of the most expensive, and actually we know because of the length of our degrees, we know because of the better post kind of Brexit exchange rates, and that the cost of living, we are actually lower cost quite often than Australia, Canada and the US, which are other very popular destinations. So the kind of with the kind of combination of work experience that students can do, scholarships that are available to students, and that post-study work visa, which will be back for students, the UK really is an attractive destination for applicants. And so really now, I just wanted to touch upon, it's important before I kind of talk about the university, just to kind of revisit why the UK. And I think there's really give you a snapshot of why it is such a fantastic destination for you to be working with and supporting. So now on to the university. Now, what I'm not going to do is go on and on about all of the different rankings of the university, or that we have a sports centre or that we have accommodation. I will mention those things, but what I really want to take, this 45 minutes is such a valuable piece of your time that I don't want to kind of just touch upon information that is available on our website or that you can get from a prospectus. So I really want to give you a feeling of the kind of students that would be suitable for UWE. But to begin with, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview. So UWE is a large university. We're the 8th largest university in the UK with a student body of over 30,000. That's made up of around 17,000 international students. So students coming to us will feel confident that they're amongst a large number of global students, but not that they're going to be looking at their course mate and saying, well, hang on, I could have stayed in India, I could have stayed in China, or I could have stayed in Nigeria because all of my classmates are also from India or Nigeria. That kind of nationality mix and the large number of domestic students means that they will get that opportunity to get that international exposure, to meet, to make classmates from all over the world, which again is a really big part of their investment in coming to the UK. We have Bristol, quite often voted the #1 city in the UK, and I'm sure other universities or people in other cities may argue this. I've lived in London, I've lived in Newcastle, I've lived in Sydney, Toronto, in lots of different places all over the world, and all of them have got great pluses. But for me, Bristol is a fantastic city for students to come and live in, and I have got a video soon which I will show you around that so you can get a sense of that yourself. But I think that is important, that students are coming to a destination that offers them something beyond just the university. And even though I said I'm not going to talk about rankings, it is important that, I know that this is a question that so many students have, and we do feel proud here at UWE that we do have those rankings. Top 30 university in the UK, very strong in terms of our employability of our international students, which is very important. TEF Gold, which again touches upon the teaching excellence that UWE has for its students. But I think what I'm most proud of is our student experience survey. So you can see here number 6 for postgraduate students experience and number 7 for undergraduate in England. And the reason that I think this is important is this is the voice of the student. So this isn't off metrics of the number of degree classifications that we're outputting or the research. This is the voice of the student who inputs into this, who are talking about their experience and their quality while studying at UWE, which to me is the most key thing. If you can feel confident that you're sending your students to a university where the students themselves feedback about the quality, then you can feel confident that those students are going to have a good experience, and therefore confident that you're not going to get the complaints, you're not going to have them on the phone all the time. In fact, they're going to feel that feedback very, very well about their experience and their time at the university. So if we move on to the next slide. So that really was just an overview. So at the university, we have 4 main faculty. We have our Faculty of Arts, Creative Industry and Education, Environment Technology, Business and Law, and Health and Applied Sciences. So if I give you a little bit more information on the next slide about our arts faculty. And again, all of this information is available on our website. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about all our different courses. We have almost 500 courses at the university, and we would be here hours and it probably wouldn't be very interesting to you all, but this is just a kind of flavour of what that offers. So we have 3 departments within our Faculty of Arts and Creative Industry. So we have Art and Design, Creative and Cultural Industries, and Education and Childhood. And I think rather than me talk at you, I'm going to show you a small video which just gives you a flavour, because these are really creative hands-on courses, amazing facilities that the students can use. And I think the best thing to do that is actually be able to show you a video of that. So if we play the video. Okay, fantastic. So hopefully that gives you a kind of a sense of that creative side of the university. So if we then move on to the next faculty, and I can give you a little bit more information about that. So we have our Faculty of Environment and Technology, and what you'll see for this is a faculty where we include everything from architecture. So if we go on to the next slide, then we can talk about the kind of courses that are available here. So this is our Faculty of Environment and Technology. So here we have our Department of Architecture, we're number 6 in the UK for architecture programs. So this is a very strong area for the university. No portfolio required. So we're looking predominantly at their kind of undergraduate studies and their school studies, but very, very strong for the university. We then have our departments of computer science and creative tech, so your normal kind of BSc computing or your MSc IT that you would see, but also some quite unique courses such as our games technology, creative music technology that you see there. So kind of your traditional ones, but the ones that are perhaps moving more into the more creative and more modern courses. We then have our Faculty of Engineering, Design and Mathematics. This is, you know, the engineering. This is a very popular faculty for a lot of our international students. So programs like MEng Aerospace, civil engineering, mechanical, automotive engineering, and Bristol in particular is a hub of aerospace because we have the headquarters of Airbus and also the Rolls-Royce as well. And also on our campus we have the largest robotics lab in Europe. So actually robotics is a real strength for the university as well. And then we also have our Faculty of Geography and Environmental Management. So again, things like geography, civil engineering, transport planning, project management. So again, courses that are really popular with international students. And then we have next a small video actually, which was actually a company that was actually part of our robotics lab. So if we see that here, you can see the kind of stuff that our students are producing. Fantastic. So hopefully you could just see, so that was actually, like I said, and this was one of the companies that was actually part of our robotics lab who produced this. So you can see again that UWE is very strong, not just in the academic side, but also in the educational and the practical side of things as well. So next we have which is probably our most popular faculty for international applicants, is our Faculty of Business and Law. And so for this, we have a wide range of programs available, anything from MBA, business management, human resources, LLB, BPC. So again, a great faculty for students who are interested in the kind of business area, law, economics. And if we just go on to the next slide, what we can show you is some of the courses here. And again, I think the best thing to do is probably show you a video, because we actually have our business school is quite new. It opened about 2 years ago. It has amazing facilities, mock courtroom, a Bloomberg suite for our economics and finance students. So I think, again, rather than me talking at you, the best thing I can do is show you a video. fantastic. So again, I think, you know, being able to visualize the facilities is always a lot more useful when you know, during these things than me just talking. And, you know, hopefully, you know, one of these days, once travel is resumed, if any of you are ever in the UK visiting other universities or for any conferences, you know, please do reach out to ApplyBoard and let them know. And we'd always be more than happy to kind of welcome you on campus and hopefully show you some of these amazing facilities that we have. And so if we move on to the next slide. Last but not least, we have our Faculty of Health and Applied Science. And if we move on to the next slide, and then I can just touch upon the departments that we have. So there's 4 main departments within our Faculty of Applied Health and Applied Sciences. And we have allied health professionals, which is things such as physiotherapy, occupational therapy. We have our Faculty of Nursing, and we have our kind of departments of social sciences, and we also have education. So the courses, if we just move on to the next slide, and then just the slide after that, some of the courses that tend to be the most popular with international students are listed here. So we have quite a large faculty. The only things that we don't offer, or the main things, are things that we don't have: medicine, pharmaceutical, dentistry, veterinary, but otherwise we have biomed, psychology, nursing, physiotherapy. All of those courses are open to international applicants. So if you have any students who are interested, please do let us know, because I know not every university opens these courses to international applicants. So if we move on to the next slide. So I talked about before, really working on trying to give you a flavour, and it's hard because there's always so much information to share with you when we have these, which is why I'm always delighted when people can visit us on campus and actually get a real sense for themselves. But for me, I think there's always 3 things that I like, you know, the partners that we work with or students to remember when they think about UWE and what makes us a little bit different. And the first one of those is Bristol. So if we move on to the next slide, just because geographically some of you may have been lucky enough to visit Bristol, some of you may know where it is in the UK, but if you look on that, sorry, it's a bit of a small map, but if you see there on the map, we're located in the southwest of the UK, about an hour and a half from London, so really good connectivity into the centre. But actually, people don't need to escape to London kind of at the weekend. It is a fantastic city in itself. So like I said, consistently voted one of the best cities in Britain. We have actually one of the highest stay back rates of our graduates than any other city in the UK. So basically, students are graduating from UWE and choosing to stay in Bristol. And I think this is because it's a fantastic young city, very dynamic, a beautiful city. A bit more cost effective than other cities in the UK, although it is becoming a very popular city, so the cost is a little bit higher. But also there are those good job opportunities there. And we talked a little bit before about the post-study work visa and kind of the opportunities that means. And if we go on to the next slide, I can give you a bit of a taster of industry in Bristol, because that is very relevant. I mean, it's a beautiful city, a population of about 500,000, very multicultural. So students from kind of countries, about 180 countries of birth, living in Bristol, 91 different languages spoken, so very multicultural. And Bristol Airport services 125 destinations around the world, and it is a very creative city. So we have almost 20,000 people working in the creative and digital sector within Bristol itself. We have the 3rd largest capita GDP per capita in the UK, so it is quite an economically strong city. And all of this is important because students want to be in a beautiful city. They want to be in a city where they feel part of the community, where they feel that they can enjoy being there. But also for a lot of them, they want that relevant work experience. They want to know that if they want to look for a job either during their studies part-time or after, that those opportunities are there and they don't just have to move to London. Now, of course, some students will want to. Of course, some students will want to move globally, but Bristol really does give them that beautiful city, that kind of young living, but also those job opportunities as well. So if we move on to the next slide, and we've got a video here, because again, why would I explain Bristol when I can show you the beautiful city that it is? So if we play the video. again, I hope you can see from that what a beautiful city it is, and we've been very lucky at the moment. I think people never believe this when I say this about the UK, but we've had some absolutely gorgeous weather. So you know, we've been lucky enough to be able to enjoy some sunshine in the beautiful city of Bristol. So if we move on to the next slide. So really, again, you know, we're talking about 3 key things I want you to take away from this. I'm not expecting you to remember all the different programs that we have, you know, all of the different rankings of the universities, and sometimes it can be quite hard to differentiate one university to the rest. So that's why we talk about these 3 things. So number 1, Bristol. Number 2 really is about campus and community. So we have 3 campuses at the university. We have our art and design campuses that you can see there at the bottom. Those are called what we call our city campus, and you saw a video of that to begin with. We have our healthcare campus, so I talked before about nursing and some of our kind of allied health professionals there taught on our GLENSIDE campus. And then our main campus, Frenchay, and if we go on to the next slide, I think those should be, yes. So this is an aerial view of our main campus. This is about 15 minutes by public transport into the centre of Bristol, so really good connectivity for students, but we also have a lot of accommodation on campus. So we have over 3,000 dorms or halls of residence that students can choose to live in. There's a huge residential area near the campus, so a lot of students will choose to live off campus in private accommodation, or they may prefer, like me, I live in the centre of Bristol, and they may prefer to have the coffee shops on hand, the shops, things like that. And actually, like I said, really good connectivity, only 15 minutes on bus, or actually I cycle when we're not on lockdown to make sure that I'm keeping myself healthy, and it takes about 30 minutes to cycle. So great connectivity, and what that really means to students is they're part of that campus, they're part of that community. And when you're looking especially at undergraduate students and them wanting to feel part of that, something that isn't just the academic side, Bristol is such a good university. You know, UWE is such a good university for that, because we really put the students first. And if we move on to the next slide, we have also the city campus site. So again, like I said, broken into 3 campuses. So Frenchay is where we have engineering, business, those kind of programs. We then have our city campus, which are things like our art, creative industries, filmmaking. And if we move on to the next slide, we then have our GLENSIDE campus, and actually this used to be an actual hospital. So you can see their beautiful old-fashioned building, but inside very modern. So we have things like our skills simulation suite, where students there can actually practice on dummies and you know, like they're actually in a healthcare system. So we're not just sending them out to a hospital and the first interaction they have is with a real patient. They get to use a lot of those real life simulations at the university itself. And then if we move on to the next slide, and I'm aware here, I'm just doing a little time check, so I know that we're about half an hour through, so we'll have about 15 minutes left of this, and then we will move on to the questions and answers. And just to kind of give you a sense, so like a lot of UK universities, the university is continuing to invest in those campus and communities and into our students. So it's really important in such a kind of fast-paced world that universities aren't slow in helping support their graduates with that. So you saw the video there of our new business school that opened 2 years ago, and we're just about this year to open a new engineering building, so just opposite the business school there. And the university is continuing to invest large amounts of money to ensure that the campus and the facilities that we offer to our students is really going to make sure that they're going into the workplace very confident and secure and very able. So that means that we have great facilities, and I think it's worth kind of adding the kind of student that would come to UWE is those that really learn by doing. So the way that we kind of talk about UWE is practice orientated. So what that means is, yes, it's academic, we're a university, there's going to be lectures and it's going to be theoretical, but we really believe that students learn best by doing, and in fact they make very strong graduates. So we know that somebody who has a certificate with a degree is a good student. They're going to be attractive to employers, but we know even more so that when they go into that interview or that selection scenario, they have to have the skills to be able to get that job. And that practice orientated learning is really what we believe helps set our graduates apart from some other universities. And then if we move on to the next slide, and then employability, and you know, this is so important. I mean, you know, the main reason that most students will go to university is for their career, and it is a huge investment for them and their parents. And you'll see, I'm sure, you know, hopefully you're you're attending quite a few of the top recruiter workshops across the next week, and I'm sure a lot of UK universities and global will talk about their employability of their students, and it is very important. At UWE we have 95% employability of further study for our UK. It's actually a little bit higher for our international, it's 97%. But I'm not always a big fan of UK universities using this, and I'll tell you why. I think it's important. It really showcases the strength of the employability for the university, but quite often these statistics are for their UK students, and they don't always give the bigger picture of what that means for international applicants who up until now haven't necessarily been able to stay in the UK to work. And if we move on to the next slide, I think the reason that I feel so confident that employability is key to UWE is all of the things that we're doing to support our international students. So we have dedicated careers advice, we have dedicated placements and internships that are paid and only able for our international applicants. But if we go on to the next slide, the thing that I'm most proud of as a university in terms of our commitment is GradLink. So GradLink is the easiest way to explain it is this is a global careers portal. So this was created by UWE. It used to just be on the UK, on UWE's website, but what we saw over time is that there was a real demand for this across the UK. So students can actually go on here and you can see that we have the 7 GradLink sites here. So we have links in China, Southeast Asia, Gulf, Europe, Canada, Africa, and the Middle East. And Asia. And what this means is that this is set up specifically for international students who want to look at their global job opportunities. And we've worked very closely in these countries or these regions to work with employers who really do value a Malaysian student or an Indian student or a Nigerian student going overseas and bringing those skills back with them. And this can be a little bit hard. You know, every country has their own job portals, but do those countries really value you as a student who's, you know, as a student who's returning from the UK? So this is something that UWE has invested in a lot over the last, I think, maybe 8-9 years. We're featured on over 100 UK university websites because we're the only university who has really invested this much in the international employability, including the University of Oxford. And it really does, you know, students can upload their CV, they can get advice and guidance, they can apply for jobs, they can be approached for jobs. So we've really seen this become, you know, as global employability has grown and, you know, visas and things like that change, we've seen this become such a useful and important resource for our applicants to be able to use. So again, this is really why for me, I feel that UWE can use that 95% statistic or 97% because we're not another university talking about our UK students. We're a university that's really invested in the employability of our international graduates. So if we move on to the next slide. And really, again, you know, it is key. Those connections as a university that we have, those placements, those leaver destinations, and you can see here, you'll recognise a lot of these, that we really are as a university supporting our students with their next step, which is moving into a career. And then if we move on, and so really, if we just reflect quickly on what I've just touched upon, because there's so many universities in the UK, there's so many universities globally, and trying to stand out or trying to translate to your students which universities are best for them can be very hard. So I think just as a reminder, the 3 things that I think make UWE a little bit special on top of our rankings and our programmes is Bristol, a fantastic city for students to be studying in. We have our campus in our community, which when they're moving away from home really is such an important part of their experience. And then we have that employability, which is the kind of the end game for most students who are wanting to study in the UK. And so, you know, for me now, these are things you need to know, because I'm sure you've all been won over by how amazing the university is, all of the opportunities that we can offer to your applicants. So this is the stuff that you need to know to now be able to counsel your students. So if we move on to the next slide, and I'll be conscious of time here as well. So accommodation, I'm not going to go into a lot of details about this because there's a lot of information on our website. I think the key thing at the moment is we are still open for main course applications. So UWE is still accepting applications for our autumn and January intake. And if students do want to join this autumn, if they apply both for the course but also for accommodation before the 25th of June, we do guarantee them a place in our halls of residence. If we move then on to the next slide. Now, entry requirements, I know that I'm speaking to quite a global audience here, so it's impossible for me to talk about individual entry requirements, but we work very closely with ApplyBoard, who have got all of the information and work very closely with us. So please keep in touch with them for any kind of country-specific requirements that you may have. I mentioned at the beginning that we really don't want students to be negatively impacted by coronavirus. So again, you know, ApplyBoard are in touch with us a lot just to check what the impact will be if a student, you know, exam is cancelled or their results are delayed. So please do kind of, you know, keep in touch with ApplyBoard so we can be having those conversations. And we've got here all of our English language requirements set out, very standard for undergraduate, postgraduate. I think what's important to let you know is that we do now accept another number of tests. So because of IELTS closure, in a lot of countries, we also are accepting language cert, Duolingo, IELTS indicator. But I mentioned at the beginning that we also have our own free of charge English language test. So any offer holder who still has a condition or will need English as part of their acceptance can do all of those tests, but we will automatically also offer them a free English language test that they can do at home. It will be invigilated by a UWE member of staff, all of it done virtually, and it follows IELTS very closely in terms of the 4 tests and the way that we mark as well. So I think this is something at this point in time where there's a lot of uncertainty, could be very, very popular for you and for your applicants. And then if we move on to the next slide. I'll touch briefly as well. So UWE does have on its campus our UWE Bristol International College. This is with Kaplan. Many of you today may work with Kaplan already. If you don't, you can still actually submit applications to us, so we can still process those applications you know, with Kaplan, even if you don't work with them. And this is what we just call our pathway college. So for students perhaps who are in countries where their education system doesn't match up, where their grades aren't as good as what they thought they would be, these are different options for them to still be able to join the university without having to do an external foundation. So it's really good because small class size is still on our campus. Students can still use all of the facilities of the university, but they get that just what we often call that bridge to help them join the actual university after completing the programme. And if we move on to the next slide. And these are our tuition fees. So again, most of this information is available on our website. All of our undergraduate fees are the same, so 13,500 for international applicants. Postgraduate will vary between 13,250 to 15,750 for our MBA. All of that is available on our website. And then scholarships. So I know this is something that we always get asked a lot about, both from our partners that we work with, but also from students and our applicants. And we're really lucky at the university. We have a large number of scholarships. Our biggest ones are at postgraduate, so students have still got time to apply for the main programme and apply for scholarship. The deadline has been moved to the end of June. Might be the end of July. I will have to check on that, apologies. So students do have still time, but even if they don't manage to apply for theirs, we have scholarships that we can work with ApplyBoard on a need by need basis. So we do a lot of case by case assessment, because what I feel quite strongly about is when I was at university in the UK, I was a good student. You know, I was a good student at school, but I wasn't an amazing student. You know, if I was looking at an academic merit scholarship, for example, I probably wouldn't have got one, unfortunately. But actually, I have a lot of other skills that made me a brilliant student that perhaps would have been overlooked just by looking at academic merit. So what we tend to do is work with our applicants and our agents to understand what is special about that student. What can we give them to acknowledge how strong they are? It could be that they're great at marketing. It could be that their social media usage is great. It could be that they're a real strong ambassador for their country and very passionate about being an Indian student or a Nigerian student. So we would work with you and with ApplyBoard to understand what is it that that student brings, and then we would look at awarding a scholarship, maybe up to £2,000 to help you support that student. So those are conversations I will continue to have with ApplyBoard to really help support you in finding those good applicants, converting them, and giving a scholarship to a student for a skill that they really do deserve. And then on to the next slide. I will go through this very quickly. This will be shared with you afterwards because I know we're kind of running short on time and I really want to kind of give you the opportunity to ask any questions, but you can just see here a kind of timeline of all of the things that will happen between now and our intake. So like I said, we are still open for applications. Those applications would be through ApplyBoard. Students normally around this time will be beginning to choose their firm, you know, so make a decision if they have applied on which university they want to go to. From June time, this is normally when students would start to begin to make their deposit payments for our autumn intake. We would often then begin to look at starting issue the CAS, and then we have our autumn and January main intakes. But again, I'm happy to go into a little bit more detail during the questions and answers if that's needed. If we move on to the next slide. And then last but not least, you know, I know look, some of you may be in countries where you've actually begun to come out of lockdown now, which is fantastic, and we're kind of slowly eking there in the UK as well. But I know that this is a time that for yourself and a lot of your students, you're at home, you're using kind of the online side of things a lot more. So I just wanted to put a couple of resources in here which may be of interest to you. So Bristol Tourism has actually created a fantastic online resource for people to use during lockdown or at any point really, and you can see here it's actually been voted one of the top 12 virtual tourism campaigns in the world. So you know, please share that with your applicants, take the time to have a look yourself. It's an amazing city, very, very beautiful, and it's great that we can still share some of that information with you. UWE has also created a number of wellbeing and success online modules that aren't just available to our applicants. This is available for anyone to use, and there's some really important stuff in here. They talk about, one of the modules is about visualize your future, connecting with others, and what an important time it is now to really look at how do we connect with others when physically we are located away from others. How do we visualize our future when it's such a time of uncertainty and change that it's hard to even visualize what will happen next month, let alone you know, next year or the year after that. So it's some really nice tools for students, or maybe even yourself, to be able to use just to kind of help with their understanding and help you know, with their academic and mental learning as well. And then the university does have some virtual open events coming up. So if you do have any inquiries, if yourself you're interested in kind of finding out more information, I've just put a little bit of information for you there so that you can register or pass on to your students if you've got any who may be interested after the session today. So if we move on to the next slide. And then really just in summary, just to kind of touch upon some of the main things. So applications are still open for our autumn and January intake. There's a lot of support at the university now on how we are supporting both our current students, but our new students and applicants who will be joining us this year. Which we're working incredibly hard to make sure that there's no negative impact for our applicants based on things like closures or exam delays. We're accepting a wider number of English language tests, include actually offering our own free online English test as well. And we've moved all of our pre-sessional English programs to online, and one of them will be running on UK time zone, and we actually have one running, we have some running in India, China and Vietnam. So for students who are on Asia time scale as well, we will have some of those running in July. We have those scholarships available, which are based on a number of things, not just the academic merits. We are offering a full refund to any student who can't join because of coronavirus. So we know this is a big thing at the moment. Students are feeling very uneasy about paying out money when there is that uncertainty there. So UWE wants to remove that for them. And then again, I've just put some resources in here which may be useful for you and your applicants. So we have the university's own COVID-19 FAQ pages where we're constantly updating new information. And there's the British Council and also UKCISA, who are really working very hard to make sure that that information is updated, so that if you do want kind of the most up-to-date visa advice for the UK, or what's happening with quarantine for the UK, those are really good resources for you to use that will have information for the whole of the UK, not just university specific. And I think that might be my last slide. So I think I finished 2 minutes over my talking time. So apologies for that. There's so much information to get through. But this would be a really good time to move to some questions and answers, I believe. So I think Inji's going to kind of take over helping me with this.
No problem, Sophie. Thank you for that. That was fantastic. I feel like I want to go back to Bristol. I haven't been there for a while, and it's a wonderful campus. I have visited it, so it's great to see it in such a lovely description there for our RPs who have joined. So we've been quite a few questions. Thank you all for that. I'm just going to go through a couple of the ones that have been asked a few times. And just to start off with, you did mention about Kaplan. So ApplyBoard does work with Kaplan. So again, everybody, you can send the applications through us. We work with Kaplan, so it's nice. It's a simple process, and they'll obviously be applying through us anyway. So that's easy and fine. I do have some questions, and you mentioned a lot of really exciting things about English tests. So we know someone asked about English tests. You're offering, again, you mentioned twice, Duolingo, Arts Indicator, PTE, language certificates, things like that. There's quite a lot of questions I had about individual requirements for certain regions. Again, our teams have all that information. Sophie has given everything to our ApplyBoard staff. So we have all that info, so just contact your account manager there. So I want to ask you a question about education gaps. So this has come up a couple of times. Do you have any regulations about students that have required education gaps? And if so, what can they do to help them with the application there?
Yeah, we tend to look on a case by case. It's less problematic when students are applying for masters because quite often actually, if they've been working or something like that, that work experience not only takes up part of their application, but can actually make them a really strong student when they do join the masters because they've got that real life experience. For undergraduate, we tend to look at what is the reason for that gap. So if, for example, a student has finished high school and they've gone and worked for their father's business for a few years and have got that experience, and then they want that undergraduate degree to give them that kind of core value, that would be fine. If it was that they graduated from high school, it's been 10 years, but they can't really tell us what they've been doing. You know, they've been taking some time to relax, and now suddenly we would probably not be able to accept a student like that. So we just need to understand, why is that education gap there? If we can see and understand, that's absolutely fine. If we feel that that's going to cause them issues either with their visa or academically because they've had that big gap and they may struggle, we're much more likely to decline, but that would be more for their own good than it would be for the university. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And it is very important to ensure a student does have a gap, make sure we have a CV and we ask them questions about why they're doing that. That's really important. I mean, lots of people come to university a bit later on, so you just want to know why. My next question is about, you mentioned, I think, earlier on about portfolio requirements for art subjects. And you said, I think, that you didn't require those for some subjects. So could you just go into that again?
Yeah, so for all of our art-based subjects, we do require a portfolio. So that would be things such as filmmaking, fine art, illustration, graphic design, things like that. And that would be quite an important part of their application because UE is ranked very high. So they're very, very popular subjects. However, for architecture, which actually some universities, architecture will sit in their School of Art and will require a portfolio. For us, it sits in our Faculty of Environment and Technology. So it is not an art-based programme. So for architecture, there is no portfolio requirement. We're looking purely academics, but for all of our art-based programmes, we would need a portfolio.
Okay, wonderful. I'm just going to start reading through some of the questions now. So you did mention scholarships and how that is quite individual to the student as well. So again, any questions about scholarships? And again, Sophie will let us know when the scholarship deadline is, if that's going to be end of June or July, and we'll let you guys know as well. So don't worry about that. More questions here. So I have a question asking if a student can apply for a MBA if they already have a master's degree.
Yes, they can. Yeah, because our MBA requires work experience, we often find that students will join us and they might have done a non-related master's. So they might have done, a good example was I was in India earlier this year, and we met somebody who'd done a master's already in public health. But he now wanted to go on and do his MBA because he kind of felt that he understood the specialisation of public health, but he wanted to now be able to kind of look at how, from a business perspective, he could elevate some of those skills. So because, again, we understood why that shift, that's completely fine. If they've done already a master's in business and then maybe only had 1 year's work experience, again, we would have to understand a little bit, okay, why, what do you think you're getting? So again, we would look at a CV, we would look at their personal statement. We may ask to interview them as well, especially if we feel that there may be a visa issue there. But again, it's no issue them applying for the MBA, as long as it's clear in their personal statement why they're applying for another master's level course.
Okay, great, that's good to know. Next question, someone's asked if the autumn intake, is that still open for applications? I mean, yes.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So,
yeah, we will continue to accept applications for our autumn intake, right up until, I mean, we still get applications in August, sometimes even September, especially from some of our South Asia markets, Nigeria. We know that your students there can be a bit tricky and a little bit late in applying, so we're still open for applications, and we will keep ApplyBoard up to date on when those applications deadlines begin to come up, which is normally around September time, depending on visa application time.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think it's clear. You mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, you were answering all the questions around COVID. Some people have still asked, will they be able to travel in September? And I know you can't kind of repeat what we're saying, what we're thinking about right now, but just to give them that confidence that it's worth still applying right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, globally, there's a lot of uncertainty, so it's almost impossible to say what will happen in September fully with travel. However, the university is fully planning on having a face-to-face intake. So I know that some students are becoming increasingly concerned about online only, and that's not what we're looking at. We're following government guidance, so obviously there's been some notification about quarantine, so we're working a lot to understand, you know, if that still is in place in the coming months, what will that mean for students coming in? So like every UK university, there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes to try and understand and make sure that the campus is safe, that we're prepared for students. But what is really positive is that for any student who does apply and pays that deposit, but then isn't able to join, especially if it's travel restrictions or something like that, we will give that full refund, or we will defer. So we don't want students to be financially kind of, you know, negatively impacted because of anything to do with coronavirus. So what we're doing at the moment with our applicants is we're encouraging them, yes, if you want to join, please still pay your deposit, apply for accommodation, and then let's continue to monitor the situation together. And so we're doing a lot of support with our applicants to make sure that they feel very, very confident about joining us.
Exactly, and that's really important. And I think added to that, the fact that you're giving that £300 NHS surcharge back to the students is a really helpful way of showing that you care about the student safety and you're really engaged in that. I think that's a really nice gesture, to be honest. So I really feel that people should have that confidence to apply, like you just said, Sophie, and you will be monitoring the situation. Again, us at ApplyBoard will also be monitoring the situation, and we'll inform all of you what the government does announce and what we can do going forward. But I would recommend, like Sophie said, to apply, get your accommodation in, get those deposits in, because you don't want to be in a situation where you can't then access the education in September when you actually wanted to. So that's really important. Just looking through some more of the questions. You mentioned about the £3,000 deposit that the student would have to pay. Do you have ways for the rest of the fees? Would they have to pay that once they land, or is there ways of them paying that over the next few months?
Yeah, so we do have instalments plan in place. So students would pay the £3,000 before joining, and then if they preferred to, they can pay in 3 instalments between arrival, and normally the last instalment would be around the February time. So they can kind of section up those payments if that's what they would prefer to do for their own financials.
Okay, great. And I'm going to have one or two more quick questions now before the end, because we're coming close to the end. Someone just asked, if a student has already studied their undergraduate studies in a separate country or even in the UK, and they want to switch to UWE to possibly change subjects, are they able to do that?
Yeah, so there's two answers there really. If they're already partway through their study, so say for example they've done 2 years out of 3 or 4 year degree, and you're so impressed with how great UE is after my presentation, and you think that they would then yes, we can actually look at accepting them for advanced entry. We would just have to do some mapping. If they've already completed a degree and they're just looking at wanting to redo, again, if they've studied in the UK, we would have to understand why, just to make sure that academic progression isn't an issue and there are visa caps in place. So we would have to be very careful. If they've studied overseas, then it's not so much of a concern. But again, we would just want to make sure for the student that they're not duplicating, because if they've already done a business degree in India or in Malaysia, it's probably already a very good business degree. So, you know, we've got some top-up programs. Would they prefer to join our top-up and just do that last year? Or actually, would a master's degree be good for them? So we always try and support the student in what they want to join, but try and make sure that it's not going to impact on their visa, and also that it's not going to be them spending additional money when perhaps there's another route for them as well. So we would work very closely. I would ask you to work very closely with ApplyBoard to give them the kind of the information, the reason. I'm the main contact for ApplyBoard. They get in touch with me and I can talk through that with ApplyBoard, make sure that we have the best solution for you.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm sorry if there's more questions we couldn't get to just now. A lot of them are around requirements and things like that. Again, the ApplyBoard team will be very happy to help you with all those individual questions about requirements and necessary things a student needs to do. We'll be happy to do that. So I'm going to stop the Q&A now. Again, thank you all for your wonderful questions, and sorry we couldn't get through all of them today, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie and Angie, for taking us through this amazing presentation. Again, every day that I sit here and learn something new, I love it. It's really fun to at least increase my knowledge around UK. So thank you so much to both of you for taking time this morning for us and this afternoon for you guys, you know. And thanks to our amazing partner for being with us. And I will look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow with the Middlesex University and Nottingham Trent University on Thursday. And then we go to our June Top Recruiter Workshop. Once again, thank you everyone, and I hope everyone stay healthy and safety.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.